This is a short reading from page 75 and 76 of Rosshalde in the 1975 Picador edition. It was well past lunchtime when the painter felt hungry and looked at his watch. He washed in haste, dressed, and went to the manor house, where he found his wife alone at table and waiting. "Where are the boys?" he asked in surprise. "They've gone for a drive. Didn't Albert drop in to see you?" It was only then that he remembered Albert's visit. Distracted and somewhat embarrassed, he began to eat. Frau Adele watched him wearily and absently cutting his meat. She had rather given up expecting him. The strain in his features touched her with a kind of compassion. She served him in silence and poured wine for him, and he, sensing a vague friendliness, made an effort to say something pleasant. "Does Albert mean to become a musician?" he asked. "I believe he has a good deal of talent." "Yes, he is gifted, but I don't know if he's cut out for an artist. I don't believe he wants to become one. So far he hasn't shown much enthusiasm for any profession. His ideal is to be a kind of gentleman who would engage in sports and studies, social life and art all at once. I don't see how he can make a living that way. I shall have to make that clear to him little by little. Meanwhile, he works hard and has good manners. I shouldn't like to upset him and worry him needlessly. After graduating from school, he wants to do his military service first in any case. After that, we shall see." The painter said nothing. He peeled a banana and took pleasure in the mealy, nutritious smell of the ripe fruit. "If it doesn't inconvenience you, I should like to take my coffee here," he said finally. His tone was friendly, considerate, and a trifle weary, as though it would soothe him to rest here and enjoy a little comfort. "I'll have it brought in. Have you been working hard?" That had slipped out almost unawares. She meant nothing by it. She wished only, since it was a moment of unusual pleasantness, to show a little interest, and that did not come easy. She had lost the habit. "Yes, I've been painting for a few hours," her husband answered dryly. It disturbed him that she should ask. It had become customary between them that he did not speak of his work. There were many of his more recent paintings that she had never seen. Rosshalde, published in 1914, was Hermann Hesse's fourth novel. He had had a big success with his first, Peter Camenzind, in 1904, which allowed him to give up his work as a bookseller and focus solely on writing. Rosshalde is thought to be the last of his more realistic novels before he moved on to the symbolic, mystical and expressionistic works such as Steppenwolf, Siddhartha, and the Glass Speed Game, for which he is most known. I read that Rosshalde is set in Switzerland, apparently near Bern, although that isn't made specific in the story itself. A currency mentioned is the thaler, an old silver coin from whose name comes the dollar. Telephones are in existence, as are motor cars, but horse and carriage is the mode of travel most mentioned and used, so I would imagine it is set perhaps a few years before 1914. I found a copy of this novel on a charity bookshelf in a supermarket. This copy was published in 1975 by Picador and is translated from the German by Ralph Mannheim, who is said to be a very good translator. The UK prize was covered up on the back of the book with ink, a present to the person whose name is written in pencil on the inside cover, perhaps. But I discovered it would have been around 50 pence or so, having been priced at 40 pence in the 1972 edition. For comparison, a Kindle edition of Rosshalde is £6.10 currently on Amazon, and paperbacks start around £14 for used copies. I went through a phase of reading many of Hesse's novels in my mid-20s, but hadn't read one for over 30 years, and Rosshalde was new to me. Hesse's short philosophical novella Siddhartha is only one of 2 or 3 books by any writer that I have read twice over. The main character in Rosshalde, Josef Veragut, is a successful artist, a painter in middle age, but his family and home life are fraught and emotionally barren. He is estranged from his wife, and although the reason is intimated at, it is never made more specific than she had somehow disappointed him in some general way, had not met his prior expectations. They are polite, but cold with each other. He lives essentially separately in his lakeside studio on the estate he owns, while his wife, Adele, lives at the large manor house on the estate, which is called Rosshalde. They take meals together on occasion at the big house. These are solemn and arid affairs. Veragut is also emotionally disconnected from his eldest son, Albert, who is at college when the story opens, but later arrives home for the summer break. The reason given for the gulf between father and son is that Albert has ostensibly taken Adele's side in the couple's estrangement. Father and eldest son are icily polite towards one another, but there is no tenderness or mutual understanding there, no intimacy, no love. Adele Veragut, Joseph's wife, seems to go about her day collecting flowers from the garden, seeing to the running of the house, and giving a lot of attention to the couple's younger son, Pierre. Pierre also dotes on his father. He's around 8 or 9 years old and craves his father's attention as well as his mother's. He is somewhat of a dreamy child and physically delicate. Pierre's love and attention is treated as a battlefield between the two parents, each one jealous of the boy's love, fearful that the little one will favour the other. The artist father is particularly concerned that the mother might, in his view, turn the boy against him, as she did, according to him, with the older son, Albert. Veragut's main focus is his art, his latest painting, his next project at hand. His paintings are realistic, yet he strives to imbue them with something eternal, either capturing a moment remembered from childhood, or the emotional distance between 2 adult figures with a young child between them, happy and oblivious to the adult's plight. This specific painting is clearly symbolic of his own family dynamic and fracturing. Joseph is very successful in the art world, internationally known, but is withdrawn and remote from it. His success seems to be happening elsewhere, wherever he isn't, and apart from the money it earns him, he takes no interest in his public fame. The novel depicts the family's home life over a springtime, throughout a beautiful warm summer, and on into the beginning of a cool and ominous autumn. Verregaud has a manservant called Robert. About his private life we later learn a little. He is treated fairly well by his employer, if a little peremptorily. Another character that features during the earlier part of the book is Otto Burckhardt, Verregaud's childhood friend, who for some time has lived in the Far East and is a businessman of sorts, owning a rubber plantation and other concerns. He is seemingly an easygoing chap, single and carefree, enjoying life and all the pleasures it has to offer, and he can see that his old friend's malaise is destroying him. Burckhardt wishes to convince, or rather seduce, Verregaud into giving up on his current sterile life, to leave the Rosshalde estate, leave his wife and young boy and go travelling with him to India and other far-flung places, to rediscover his youthful exuberance and sense of adventure. Verregaud is reluctant, fearing he will then lose influence over young Pierre and inevitably lose his love. The little boy, to Verregaud, embodies all his tender feelings and connection with his own emotional and inner life, all the intimacy he may have had for his wife or had at one time, are now wrapped up in this jealous and overwhelming love for his child, and everything depends on this love being unassailed and protected. Verregaud is consumed by his artistic work, and when he is working in his studio, he often doesn't have time for Pierre's intrusions. And Pierre, in turn, hates the smell of turpentine that his painter father carries with him. Yet Verregaud jealously guards the emotional closeness between himself and his boy, fearing he will soon lose it to the boy's mother. Verregaud's artistic work is often described in terms of mastering or getting the best of the subject at hand, of winning over nature, capturing some essence. The creative act is depicted in terms of embattlement and mastery. He pours his vital energy into a painting which often leaves him exhausted, physically and emotionally. But this focus and relentless drive to capture nature, or the image in his mind, is presented as also some denial of the failure of his personal life, an escape from his inner fears of losing the love of his second son, and the repressed pain of the profound failure of his marriage. It is hinted at that he had expected his wife to be different in their marriage, that she had changed from when they first met, but this essential quality in her that he longs to recapture, or that he feels is lost forever, is never made clear. The book is told in the third person and chiefly concerns itself with Verregaud's perspective, yet in some passages the interiority of Adèle, his wife, is revealed, as is Pierre's, where he seeks to understand the adult world, lost in private childlike fantasies. Yet we do not get to know the older boy, Albert, from the inside out. He often plays the piano once home, modern composers for the period, but dislikes playing for his father, especially when asked. He talks of affecting certain attitudes with colleagues and college friends that he doesn't actually feel. On Albert's return to Rosshalde, the frostiness between father and son is immediately evident. There's no love between them or trust, merely suspicion and distance, as though he, Albert, were in league against Verregaud, alongside his mother. At least Verregaud sees it that way. Later in the story, Albert reveals a sort of grudging admiration for his father's single-mindedness yet no tenderness. The family has been soured and broken apart, yet they go on living in some superficial ways as though they are a sort of family grouping, and all this despite the painter's professional success and the trappings of wealth they enjoy in the form of the Rosshalde estate. Otto Burckhardt, Verguth's boyhood friend, having charmed the Verguths and young Pierre, goes off on his travels again, but not before imploring his friend to break away, to come travelling with him, to recapture the joy, good humour and passion Verguth had shown when a young student, all of which he has clearly lost. Verguth need only write him a letter, and all will be set in motion, his old friend assures him. As the summer wears on, something strange begins to happen to little Pierre. Some change begins to build. I won't go into that here so as not to spoil the tale, but the mounting concern over Pierre brings the parents together somewhat, although the final chapters are a difficult read due to the painful situation that is worsening for all the family. Rosshalde is a fairly short novel, at around 150 pages. I did like it, overall, but not as much as Steppenwolf, which I hope to reread one day, or some of his other works such as Siddhartha, Knulp, Klingså's Last Summer, which also features a painter, and Narziss und Goldmund. The quality of the writing is very good, descriptive of the inner life of an artist, but also of the estate itself and its surroundings, flowers, trees, plants, textures of light, and the weather feature throughout. In the end, though, it is a novel about relationships, and how once failed they resist any reconciliation. I felt irritated with Verguth at times, as he was doing little to try to improve relations with his wife and older son, that he'd just become resigned to their estrangement and the mutual coldness. Not that Adele makes any effort either, really. They are simply becalmed in their failed relationship and not trying to mend it, just existing in a sterile and embittered half-life. Only little Pierre appears to be the glue holding the family together at all, the person through which the current of love still flows, and he is jealously fought over by both parents who vie for his affection and time, each one fearing the other will own the boy's love at their expense. The parents are acting selfishly in this regard, I felt, as though the children are possessions. Albert certainly has chosen his side, but it would seem that he was expected to do so. This possessiveness is made explicit as the story develops, wherein Verguth reveals his desire to take Pierre with him if he should leave the estate, which is rejoined by Adele's defiant refusal. They are fighting over him as though he were a prized object, not a child who needs both father and mother, and ideally would need both parents to care for one another too. The passages where Pierre's thoughts and inner life are depicted are good and convey the genuineness of a child's perceptions, his growing awareness of life, of himself, and of the adult world. Likewise, his confusion as to being a fought-over object between his mother and father, both of whom he cherishes. He is both a bridge between the parents and also the site of their deepest hostility and fears. I have read that Hesse had had a failed marriage prior to the writing of this novel, and then a second failed marriage in the 2 years or so after Rosshalde was published. We learn that he and his young family rented a large house around the time this novel was written, which some believe is the model for the estate home in Rosshalde. There is also commentary that Hesse experienced estrangement and ongoing difficult and distanced relationships with his own 2 sons from one of the 2 marriages that had failed. As well as a writer, Hesse was a prolific painter, mainly in watercolours, and so the descriptions of painting and the artistic process in the novel Rosshalde ring true as from experience and are very detailed and rich. Had the book been much longer, I might have given up on it at certain points. It is an intense reading experience, focused on the interiors of characters' lives rather than action or plot, and has a stifling quality about it, which mirrors the tension, fragility, and stuckness in the relationships the story is concerned with. As said, the final chapters make for a difficult and disturbing read. My final feelings about Véragut himself were not all that positive. Not that he should be expected to be happy in a relationship that offers no joy or peace to him, and neither should his estranged wife, Adele. But Véragut's focus on himself, his needs and wants, whilst paralysed with fear of losing the life-giving closeness to his young son Pierre, overshadows any possibility of a reconciliation with his wife. The creative life and drives of an artist in this novel are shown to be incompatible with a stable and loving family life. It is not that this invariably must be so, but it is so in this case.